Mask Girl. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The show begins with our protagonist Mo-Mi narrating how she used to enjoy dancing as a child. She frequently performed at school events and was praised by everyone for her talent. Mo-Mi had always aspired to be a K-pop idol, but as she grew older, her dream began to crumble due to her appearance. She didn't quite meet the traditional Korean beauty standards, and those around her began calling her ugly. As a result, she was constantly bullied at school and became socially isolated. Even her mother asked her to stop dancing, saying she would never become anything with that ugly face. In the present, Mo-Mi is 27 years old and works at an accounting firm. Her life has turned out to be the complete opposite of what she had hoped for, but she still wishes to perform on stage. Therefore, one day she decides to start a live streaming session on social media while wearing a mask and wig. In the following days, she broadcasts her sexy dance performances in provocative clothing and receives love and money from her fans. Mo-Mi eventually becomes the #1 streamer on the platform and is popularly known as the Mask Girl. In the following scene, we see Mo-Mi and her best friend going to work as usual. When they arrive, they notice a younger and attractive colleague named Arium serving coffee to the men in the office. It turns out that every male in the office is fawning over her, which really irritates the other girls. Shortly after, their manager Park arrives at the office, and Mo-Mi narrates how he is different from other men. He is the only one who refuses Arium's coffee and tells her not to do it again since it's not her job. It is revealed that Mo-Mi has a huge crush on him and rambles about how talented and kind he is. However, she admits that she'll never confess this to him because he is married and devoted to his wife. She also claims that he always prioritizes work, unaware that Park spends the entire day at his desk photoshopping a six-pack onto himself.
Oh yeah, it's me, Six Park. What up?
The next day at work, Mo-Mi notices Park scolding Arium for making an error in her report. He demands that she stay late and finish the work, to which she complies. Later, Mo-Mi feels bad for the girl and advises her not to take their boss's words to heart. She claims that he does this just to bring out everyone's true potential. After her short speech, Mo-Mi walks away, but soon realizes that she has left her ID card on her desk. When she returns to the office, she is shocked to find Arium and Park together. The girl is upset with her boss for yelling at her, but he explains that he had put on such an act in front of others. The two then start making love, leaving Mo-Mi speechless. He's straight parking her. Later at home, a heartbroken Mo-Mi gets very drunk and starts dancing during her live stream. She then begins to remove her clothes and eventually ends up completely naked on camera, leaving her audience stunned. Due to this act, Mo-Mi is promptly suspended from the streaming platform. She must not have been using Twitch, but her followers have managed to capture her live footage. The next morning, she wakes up with a hangover and discovers her account has been suspended. This frustrates Mo-Mi, and she decides to get her revenge on Arium for ruining everything. Later at work, she gathers a group of gossiping coworkers and informs them that she witnessed Arium and Park making love in the office the night before. Everyone is shocked to hear this, and the news soon spreads like wildfire. The women begin shaming Arium for sleeping with a married man. "You're the worst," while the men become jealous that Park slept with the most beautiful girl in the office.
High five, Park, yeah, bro.
Soon, HR also becomes aware of the situation and summons both parties to the office to reprimand them. Later, while leaving the office, Mo-Mi is approached by a quiet, nerdy colleague named Ju Onam. He seems like he wants to say something important, but eventually chickens out and leaves without speaking. Afterward, Mo-Mi notices a drunk Park on the roadside and feels sorry for him. She asks for his address so she can help him get home, but he's too intoxicated to answer. He then starts to stumble towards the road, endangering his life, so Mo-Mi quickly stops him. With no other option, she takes him to a nearby motel, where he immediately passes out on the bed. Mo-Mi then removes his clothes and climbs into bed with him, but she doesn't go any further. Doesn't matter, that's already a crime. When Park wakes up the next morning, he's shocked to see himself and Mo-Mi in the same bed, both half naked. This terrifies him, so he hurriedly sneaks out without waking her up. Later, when Mo-Mi arrives at work, she discovers that Park has resigned and Arium has been transferred to another branch. This makes her feel very bad, as it means she won't get to see her crush from now on. Afterward, while Mo-Mi is immersed in her work, she notices an email from an anonymous sender. The email contains a nude picture of her as the Mask Girl, along with the words, "I know who you are." This scares the shit out of Mo-Mi, and she worries that her identity has been exposed. When Mo-Mi returns home, she tries to access her streaming account, but discovers that it's still suspended. She then uses the private chat function and discovers a message from someone named Once Upon a Prince, who claims to be her biggest fan. Mo-Mi informs him that she will stop streaming from now on because no one loves her. However, the guy responds that this isn't true and urges her to keep giving amazing performances, especially with her boobies out. This makes Mo-Mi happy, knowing that there is still someone who cares about her. On the other hand, we see that her biggest fan is none other other than her quiet colleague, Onam, and he wants to Onam nom nom on that ass. In the next scene, we get to learn a bit about Onam's background. He narrates how he was a chubby kid throughout his childhood and was bullied because of it. Onam felt isolated and gradually became invisible to those around him. During his teenage years, he began watching animated adult content and eventually became addicted to it. As an adult, Onam started living with a life-sized doll, treating it as if it were his girlfriend. He also struggled to make eye contact with women and used to focus on their hands instead, while wishing that he had a tentacle penis. While at the office, Onam would often stare at Momi from a distance and find her very attractive. One day, while she was handing him a report, he noticed 2 moles on her hands and her fresh green nail polish. That evening, he returned home and began watching The Masked Girl, with whom he had recently developed an obsession. The girl soon began dancing, and Onam recognized the 2 moles on her hands, as well as the green nail polish. At that point, he realized that the masked girl was none other than his colleague Momi. From then on, he became even more fixated on her and covered his walls with her photos. He began to fantasize about their future together and how she would eventually fall in love with him. But when Onam watched her go fully nude during the stream, he was disgusted and upset. Those nipples aren't cartoons. The next day, he approached Momi in the office and tried to confess his feelings, but he eventually became scared and left. Outside the office, Onam saw her helping a drunk Park, which made him jealous. He followed them to a motel and assumed they were going to make love, which enraged him even further. As a result, he went home and decided to send her an email with her naked picture to scare her. In the present, Momi and Onam are still chatting when she asks if he can meet in person. This excites him, but before he can respond, she adds that he shouldn't bother, since another fan named Handsome Monk has already asked her out. Onam is left furious by the information, and he decides to find out more about this new guy. The following day, Momi goes on a date with the Handsome Monk while wearing a mask. They head to a restaurant, and she feels self-conscious and hesitant to remove her mask. However, the guy begins to insist, saying he wants to see her real face, and she's freaking him the hell out with this. When Momi eventually complies, the guy starts to compliment her beauty. He says she is very pretty and much more attractive than he expected. This boosts Momi's confidence, and the two end up having a terrific time chatting and drinking together. Shortly after, when Momi goes to the restroom, the guy reveals his true colors and tweets about her. He informs everyone that the masked girl is much more ugly than he imagined. Nonetheless, he intends to sleep with her and promises her fans that he will post a photo of her after getting her drunk. Meanwhile, Onam is at home when he comes across this post. This worries him greatly, and he attempts to contact Momi, but is unsuccessful. He eventually arrives at the area where he thinks she is and starts looking around for her. On the other hand, the Handsome Monk persuades Momi to go to a motel under the pretense of continuing their conversation privately. She refuses at first, but when the pervert continues to insist, she reluctantly agrees. Once they arrive at the motel room, the guy immediately tries to make a move on her. Momi refuses, stating that she didn't intend to sleep with him, but this only enrages the man. He tells her that she should have mentioned this beforehand instead of wasting his time and money. Hearing this, Momi is deeply hurt and hands him some money before attempting to leave. However, he grabs her again and tries to force himself on her, sparking a fight between them. During their scuffle, the guy accidentally gets wrapped in the blanket and hits his head on a marble counter. He starts bleeding profusely, and Momi freaks out at the sight. She tries to call the police with her phone, but notices several missed calls and texts from Onam. Desperate for help, she calls him and gives him her address, stating that she's in trouble. Soon after, Onam arrives at the motel and is shocked to see the man lying unconscious on the floor, bleeding. They both believe he has died, and Momi suggests calling the police and confessing everything. However, Onam asserts that they will put her in jail for murder, since she came here of her own will. He urges her to go home and promises to handle the situation. Momi is taken aback and wonders why he would help her like this. She is hesitant to go home at first, but eventually gives in when he insists. After she leaves, Onam attempts to cut the guy's clothes to dispose of the body. Surprisingly, he jolts awake, revealing that he's still alive, but Onam stabs him multiple times in the torso.
Onam, you didn't, bitch.
Finally killing him anyway. The next morning, when Onam arrives at the office, he discovers that Momi has quit her job. This makes him feel very sad, realizing that he won't be able to see her anymore. He then approaches the HR manager and requests Momi's address, claiming he needs to retrieve some documents from her. The manager doesn't suspect anything and provides him with the address. After work, Onam goes to Momi's house with some of her belongings and rings the doorbell. However, when she doesn't respond, he leaves them outside her door and walks away. Upon returning home, Onam notices that Momi is back on her live stream. She announces that she is quitting all of this and will perform one last dance for her fans. Hearing this, Onam panics and immediately rushes to her home again. He starts banging on the door, claiming that he knows she's inside. This leaves the masked Momi with no choice but to open the door and let him in. Following this, she expresses guilt for what happened to the guy, but Onam tells her not to worry because he was just a cockroach. However, she coldly responds that he's no different from him, since she knows he is the guy behind the username Once Upon a Prince. Momi claims that she was confused at first, but eventually figured it out since she hadn't told anyone else about her date except him. She accuses him of sending her nude photos to harass her, but Onam explains that he was just jealous of seeing her with Park and acted rashly. As the conversation goes on, Momi asserts that she plans to start a new life from now on, and that's why she quit her job. She claims that she will erase her memories of what happened and then leave this place, but this makes Onam very angry as he doesn't want her to quit live streaming. In his rage, he abruptly pushes her onto the bed and begins forcing himself on her. Momi resists at first, but eventually becomes silent as the man continues. Moments later, Onam notices something strange behind the mask and removes it from her face. He then notices that Momi's face is completely covered in bandages, implying that she has had plastic surgery. He starts to freak out and questions why she took such a drastic step, but Momi suddenly flips the man over and grabs an ice pick from a nearby table. Shockingly, she begins stabbing him in the neck multiple times while he screams in agony. After Onam eventually dies, Momi breaks into tears and the episode comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.